As first reported by Fightful Select, AEW has been negotiating with WBD for several months. The belief is that the two sides reach a deal. An official announcement will come either if the two sides reach a deal. An official announcement will come either this summer or fall. The deal would be a huge money increase for AEW. By the way, things are looking now, and I put a little note here. If it is $1 billion, I expect everyone to beg us for forgiveness.
Nobody remembers anything.
No, but I remember, goddammit, and I'm putting that video back out of us predicting because we had some knowledge that it's $1 billion. $1 bill Phil.
Train.
Oh, sorry, JD has a train going through his house. It's not Train the band, drops Jupiter in his head. Hey, that's the whitest shit I ever said in my life, by the way, on this podcast. But I'm just gonna keep rambling until JD gets through with that train that's in his house. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead. Is the train train's back? Oh, we got a train alert. So there it is. Yeah, there it is. So we thought we had some inside knowledge of the $1 billion deal, right? We talked to a guy, other people had the same thing. It was out there. A lot of different people reported it. And then it just never happened. And I don't know what the hell happened. Well, obviously they didn't get the deal done in time for those upfronts. I think there was maybe some people thought it would, and then it just never happened. So now we're looking at possibly the end of the summer or by the fall of that deal going through. Now, will it be a $1 billion? That I don't know. But if the next story that we're going to talk about, if that comes to fruition, then I think that maybe we get there.
So sorry. The joys of living in rural America. You get these gigantic trains that rumble through your backyard at 11 o'clock at night. We did have that story, and I asked the question on this show: where did that number come from? Because everybody had it. It wasn't like you and I made it up. We heard it from a guy who's been right about everything. By the way, we cannot reveal the source, but the source
we can't.
Is right about everything. That
when it comes to AEW, it's been like 99.99%. There's been some matches that we thought were going to get booked for certain shows that we never revealed here. No. They didn't get booked right when we thought they were going to happen, but they ended up getting booked like a week later, right? Mm-hmm. So my thought is, I think $1 bill Phil put that out there.
Oh, I was just about to say the exact same thing. I absolutely think because $1 bill Phil proclaimed himself as such on the debut debut episode of Collision. That being said, it could still happen.
Yeah. It makes sense to me. Because here was the next story that we were going to talk about, and we'll just go. We have a couple AEW stories, and then we're gonna jump into some other stuff, and then we're out. The WBD is interested in more AEW pay-per-views. So here's the next. So Fightful Select has been knocking out AEW stories all week. So we're going to give them their kudos. They're also reporting that WBD has proposed expanding AEW's pay-per-view schedule significantly, including the possibility of AEW running one pay-per-view show a month, similar to WWE's schedule of airing one PLE a month. It was not confirmed whether these pay-per-view events would be standalone events or would be included in a streaming deal involving AEW and WBD streaming service Max. So that's what we had speculated before, right? It's like, okay, if Warner Brothers is going to expand this deal, right? They have the 3 television shows. Well, how do you get to $1 billion? You got 3 primetime television shows. Rampage still technically in primetime because 8 to 11 is primetime, right? Mm-hmm. You got 3, and that's 5 hours a week. And then you got the quarterly Battle of the Belts, right? And then how else do we get there? Monthly premium live events, right? On HBO Max and, quarterly pay-per-views. I don't know if the month that they have a pay-per-view that's all that they have. However they get there, you're looking at, a 12 show schedule monthly. I think that's how you get to that $1 billion figure.
It makes perfect sense. I've been saying this for months that AEW needs the boost that WWE got by getting on Peacock. Max has significantly more subscribers than WWE. Now, that being said, AEW is significantly smaller. Always has been, too, than WWE. But now you've got a chance to reach a wider audience.
Yeah.
But especially by giving, because it's like what, $10 for Max, something like that. Now you get your pay-per-views out there, and again, people like, oh, they would devalue their pay-per-view. It's like, no, man, you get paid a lot more. You get paid, and the argument is that less is more. Less is more. No, less is less financially, right?
Yeah.
Do you recall the Eric Bischoff story of, oh my God, they were taking the water coolers out of Titan Tower. They were so broke. Do you recall the specific? It's not Vince Russo's genius booking. Do you recall the specific decision that turned around WWF's financial fortune?
Yeah, they got rid of the 1999 In Your House pay-per-views they're doing monthly, and they expanded to 3. Those are only 2 hours, by the way, and they were just like small little specials. And they just created a 12-month pay-per-view schedule based off of what WCW was doing. They had the audience, and then all of a sudden, and before they did that, that was the reason why they couldn't afford Bret Hart anymore. Yep. And then when they made that decision, I think it was the summer of 1997. I think I'm trying to remember. Somebody's going to fact check me at some point, but I think Canadian Stampede was probably the last In Your House show. I think it might have been. And then later they went to that 3-hour, like Bad Blood, I think was like a full 3-hour pay-per-view. I think JD's doing some research right now. I think Bad Blood ended up being like a 3-hour pay-per-view. Well, once they did that, they were able to expand their bank account. They started making a lot more money. At that point, they were able to pay Bret Hart, but that relationship had soured so much that they couldn't reconcile. So, yes, more money is a good thing for AEW. Is it overkill? Could the product get oversaturated? Absolutely, it could. I think that's a real thing. If they want to charge, $40 a month or $50 a month every month for their pay-per-views, will they maintain their audience?
No.
I think they would struggle, and it's not like they're UFC, right? They're not UFC hot. They're not UFC big. UFC can sell, like they've done like over 2 million buys for a pay-per-view before with the Conor McGregor shows. Like they're not even close to that level. They're hovering around 100 to 150,000 pay-per-view buys per month, right? So would it be like a crazy stretch? It's like if Warner Brothers says, hey, we'll pay you the average of what your pay-per-views are. So they average over like a 2-year span. Here's the average, which is what ESPN and UFC did. We'll pay you that flat fee, and then you just do this every month. And then that, or maybe they overpay for it. They say, hey, well, here's that flat fee, and then we'll give you 25% over that. Boom. Now we're all exclusive here. And then you can go ahead and sell your pay-per-views individually overseas if you want to do it that way. And then boom, you got that's how you get to $1 billion right there.
That is how you get to $1 billion. Now, if they were to do $50, 12 months a year pay-per-view, you would cannibalize your audience to a certain extent. So they have 5. So let's crunch the numbers here. So let's ballpark. Let's say 150. Let's just say, because it's a nice round number. Yeah. So you got 150. Math is not my thing. 150,000 buys, right? 150,000. There you go. Times 5. Right. So that gives you 7,500,000. No, 70. See, not having the commas on the calculator app messes me up, man. It's like 75,000. Right. So if you were to cut, and if you lose, basically, if you were to like half your audience, you would still make money.
Yeah.
You'd make a lot more money, actually. If half the people stopped, right? If you lose half of your pay, if you drop it down to like, all you got is 750, like was 150, so 75,000 buys per month at $50, you would make a lot more money.
Yeah.
Now, does that hurt goodwill to your product? Yeah. Would it be a lot easier if they just went to Max? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they would be a lot more popular.
Yeah,
I think that would increase their earning potential, especially if they're getting the same amount of money that they were getting for their pay-per-views anyway. Just average it over 12 months. And then you're expanding your audience right there.
So
I think that's a win-win for everybody.
I have a different take on this too. Is like, I actually think that this helps your television show because again, when AEW first started, it was like, they're not going to be building to a pay-per-view every month, right? The show can just be what it is. Since the launch of Dynamite, every week I have to listen to pundits bitch that they're not building to the pay-per-view.
Well, yeah, and then they wait till 2 weeks out to build the pay-per-view.
And then
the pay-per-views always rule.
And then it's fine. But it's like every fucking pay-per-view cycle, people are like, they're not building the pay-per-view, and then they do it the last 2 weeks and they sell, and it's fine. I don't think. I think 25 years of WWE television has been so ingrained in even people who claim to hate the product, guilty, that this is the way wrestling television should be, is you have to be constantly working toward these major shows. And if you're not, the show is spinning its wheels. I disagree with that in a sense, but if that now I'm relenting this point because I've always thought it was fine the way it is. However, if you are booking toward a 12 pay-per-view cycle, right? And now the booking has to like reflect, the television booking has to reflect that. I think that might actually be more appealing to modern wrestling fans who seem to not be able to handle that if the show is not being worked toward a pay-per-view.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. I think what we would lose as viewers of Dynamite, we would lose these big shows that we get for these Dynamite specials where we get like the Arthur Ashe Stadium, and then we would get Blood and Guts, and we get these other like specialized TV shows, because those would have to then. Now, I'm not saying that's a guarantee. That would just be my assumption that they would want to move those to pay-per-view or to Max if it's on streaming. I think that's what we would be looking at, and I think that's fine. But here's where I'm coming from as a viewer, Mike the viewer. Yeah. WWE oversaturated the hell out of me with all of their content. They got 3 primetime shows, right? And then they do their monthly. They have not only their main roster monthly shows, they got quarterly NXT shows. Now, I don't even watch the quarterly NXT shows. I might watch a match if my cousin Joe texts me and says, watch this match. So to now where I'm only really paying attention to the monthly PLEs. If AEW goes to a monthly cycle, that's going to be my viewership habits going forward with AEW. It's just too much for me, the viewer, because I got so many other interests. Guys, I like going to the movies. I went to Indiana Jones this past Saturday. I loved that movie. It was flawed. Still loved it. I had a really good time watching that movie. I like sport. I like sports. Right? I like to go to concerts. My family and I like to go to the beach. We like to do hiking. We like, we have a whole life outside of pro wrestling. I think for me, I'm going to get to a point where I'll just get sick of AEW and I'll only watch the big shows. And that's probably, and you know what? I'm actually fine with that. That's okay with me. That's no problem. Count me in. Now I'll only probably watch 12 AEW shows a year. And that's really going to reduce the amount of time I'm watching wrestling, which I think is a good thing for me.
So you know me, man. Like, you looking behind me, I've got my bookshelf filled with comics, right? Some are mine, some are, most of them are stuff that I've just read that I love over the years. I'm sitting here playing with my Spider-Man lanyard that I'm going to wear for my ID, right, at school next year. I nothing made me happier in the summer of 2008 when we had the Dark Knight and Iron Man became the center of pop culture. Right. Yeah. I felt like the nerds had finally taken over I felt triumphant, and it became like Marvel became the cool thing. Everybody was talking about Marvel. I go to practice and the kids all are talking about Marvel. They're asking me questions. Like, I'm like, man, this is great. Here we are 2023 and I've grown to hate Marvel.
Yeah.
I'm not watching. I haven't watched any of their shows since probably Loki. And I like Loki. I went to the Ant-Man movie. I'm like, this is terrible. I hate this.
That's
right.
The third one, right?
The third one. Yeah, it's not good. I've been so cold. They all haven't been bad, but I've been cold on the vast majority of Marvel movies since Endgame. Bob Iger just today said we have put out too much Marvel product. We have oversaturated the market.
Yep.
But that is not AEW's problem. If you are paid for a service, you provide the service, right? Mm-hmm. I have a theory. They are not releasing the numbers. I think that there are more people watching the PLEs than are watching SmackDown and Raw. Every week.
I don't disagree there. Oh, well, I think the SmackDown number would be tough to beat. I think that the PLEs are doing far better than Raw and NXT. Absolutely.
Well, NXT, for sure.
I'd be surprised if they beat SmackDown though.
Maybe it depends on the PLE. I bet by and large they are, but I can't prove that because Peacock doesn't release those numbers. Just a vibe. That being said, I think there's a lot of people that consume their WWE content once a month, right? And that's why the WWE relies so much on, give me the thing, and now I can't. But the video packages, right?
Yeah,
because they have to bring up their audience. So if that becomes the way that's done, so be it.
Yeah, all the people that watch every episode of Raw and NXT and SmackDown get so mad at those video packages. I love them because I'm like, I'm getting caught up now.
That's
right?
what they're for.
It's really great for me as a viewer. When I went to WrestleMania earlier this year, going to WrestleMania is like going to the circus, right? It's like just this big thing, and it's like if you're close by, you go, right? I went, and I just remember the Hell in a Cell match between Edge and Finn Balor. Had no idea why they were mad at each other. No idea. I knew they'd been feuding for a while, but they did a really great video package. Nobody does them better than WWE. And I got all caught up. I was like, great, this is fantastic. Now I know why they're fighting. Right? It's like watching a movie at that point. And each match at WrestleMania was like its own episode of television, right? They all, like, the match itself might have gotten 15, 20 minutes, but the entire presentation was like over a half an hour, like 30 to 40 minutes. That's like an episode of Banshee, right? Like that. Shout out John Muse. I had to get that in. So you know what I mean? So I felt that was a good thing. AEW's presentation, at least on Dynamite this week, kind of reminiscent of some of the stuff that we see up in New York, right? With some of their storylines that they're doing. Now, the matches, not so much. They're still doing AEW style matches, but they're starting to bring over some of the other stuff that you might see up north, right? And so I think we're going to get more geared towards that, telling these stories leading to those pay-per-views.
But that's what people have been like, that's been the critique. So I mean, like, it's so hard to serve these masters because there's people who are like, well, they don't tell stories. Okay, we're doing.
No, they've always told stories. That's the biggest load of shit ever.
You read that thing. I wrote a thing for Voices of Wrestling. Hopefully it comes out next week and I'll give you a thing. But I did this whole dissertation on stories in wrestling and why it's bullshit. But like, they're addressing their critics. And I think that you're getting the two different shows that are going to have two different vibes as to how to present these stories. And I honestly, because Tony Khan is such a numbers guy, I think he's taking these two shows with these two different approaches just to see how it winds up. Now it's a little skewed because like Collision's on such a shit night, but it's interesting to see where this is going. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we'll see. So when I watch AEW, I don't watch for that. So the MJF and Adam Cole stuff, I was not interested in. I know it's appealing. I know you liked part of it. I just don't care. I'm just like, okay, hurry up.
But we still got great matches, though.
We did.
Yes, we did. Like that Swerve and Nick Wayne match was really good, dude. I freaking loved Jericho and Commander. Like, I thought there was some good wrestling. You know, hey, our man Big Bill, been praising him since we were braced for Impact. He had
everybody that was shit on Big Bill can kiss my whole butt. You know what I mean? Like, he's great. And I like the tag team of Big Bill and Brian Cage.
Me too. I think there's something there.
That could work.
Me too.
Dude, that's a 1987 tag team if I ever saw one. I love it. Give me more. I love that.
It worked. The match worked better for me. I thought the segment was boring, but I thought the match and the post match went pretty good. So, that's the best part about wrestling. It's every week because you can experiment, and if something doesn't work, you just don't do it again. Do something different next week.